Tonight, something pretty wild is happening right outside New York City's mayoral residence. And look, this isn't about some new tax or a policy fight. No, this is about old documents and a network whose name still sparks instant outrage.
So what's all the commotion about? It's all because of these newly resurfaced records connected to the infamous network of Jeffrey Epstein.
And yeah, the reaction seems intense, right? But once you actually dig into the context, it all starts to make a chilling amount of sense.
See this story? It's not just about the past. It's about a crisis of trust that is absolutely boiling over right now. Okay, so let's get into it. What do these documents actually say? And why in the world are they causing such a firestorm now, more than a decade later?
All right, the records point to this one specific event, back in 2009, an after-party hosted at a Manhattan townhouse owned by Ghislaine Maxwell. But here's the absolute kicker, the detail that changes everything. This happened after Jeffrey Epstein had already pleaded guilty to serious crimes in 2008. That timing is crucial.
So, from what we can tell from emails at the time, this was some kind of after-party for the film industry. But the fact that this social scene was just continuing, out in the open, even after a criminal conviction? Well, that raises some huge questions. Who is still hanging around this network, and why did they think that was okay?
You have to understand, when you see powerful names showing up at the same events with the same people after a major conviction, of course the public is going to demand answers. These aren't just wild accusations, right? They're totally legitimate questions about judgment and accountability that just never got answered.
But look, this is so much bigger than just one event from the past. The real reason these documents have so much power is because of what they expose about the fractures in our society today.
And that's where politics comes in. The mayor, you'll remember, ran as a total outsider, a clean break from the old guard. But when family connections seem to cross paths with these exact same elite, controversial circles, well, that whole story gets put under a microscope for everyone to see. And that is why the anger is so potent. It's not just about these specific documents. They've basically become a lightning rod for all these other frustrations about how the city's being run.
I mean, put yourself in the shoes of a New Yorker for a second. You're dealing with trash piling up, you're worried about public safety, and you're watching the city's budget just fall apart. When public trust is already that fragile, a story like this doesn't just land, it explodes.
And then on top of all that, you've got the administration making these really controversial choices in corrections leadership. Supporters will tell you it's progress, critics say it's a huge risk. But this isn't really an ideological debate. It's about deterrence. People are asking a pretty simple question. If the powerful seem to face no consequences, do the systems meant to protect the rest of us even work anymore?
And just when you think it can't get more complicated, there's the money. The city's financial crisis is like pouring gasoline on this fire of public anger.
So, the city is staring down a massive, multi-billion-dollar budget gap. And we're not just talking about a number on a spreadsheet here. This means real, painful cuts to things like schools, sanitation, public safety, the very services people depend on every single day. This puts the city in a really tough spot, a real dilemma. Do you raise taxes on the highest earners to try and fill that gap, or do you risk them just packing up and leaving the city, taking thousands of jobs with them? We've seen it before. When opportunity leaves, it's the working people who are often forced to follow.
So what's happening in New York right now, it's not happening in a vacuum. It's actually part of a much bigger national story about who has the power and what happens when people feel like they've completely lost their voice.
Yeah, what we're seeing here really fits into this deep, growing distrust in our major institutions all across the country. There's this feeling that critical decisions are being made about us, not for us. And when that feeling takes root, the anger doesn't stay quiet. It shows up right at the gates.
When you boil it all down, the core demand here is pretty simple. It's about transparency. It's this basic idea that public officials have a duty to answer legitimate questions, especially when those questions are raised by legitimate documents. In the court of public opinion, silence just isn't an option.
Because here's the thing about public trust. You can't just demand it. It's not something that comes with the job title. It has to be earned, day in and day out, through accountability and just basic, visible competence.
And all of this leaves us with a really stark choice, and not just for New York, but for cities everywhere. Are leaders going to embrace transparency, or are they going to risk the chaos that follows when public trust completely collapses?
At the end of the day, the city doesn't need more slogans or distractions. It needs leadership that actually understands just how fragile that trust is. Because when it finally breaks, people don't just stay silent. They show up.